Welcome to my studio. Hello, let's start on this beautiful cat portrait. I'm going to be showing you some different things today because I was thinking about if you're a beginner and you're wanting to start working with pastel, it's not just as simple as, a lot of times I'll start with something taped down. I've got my paper and my supplies, and I don't really go into the whys of it. So I'm going to explain a couple of things that we tend to forget. So first off, in preparation, of course, I always have my supplies around me. I want to know what colors I'm going to need for my reference photo. I want to make sure that my pencils are sharpened if I'm going to be using pencils, which most likely I am. So I've got my pan pastels here selected that I will be using. And I've got my sharpener here. You have a razor sharpener, like a craft knife that I use to sharpen my pencils. So I'll have that handy, and I'll make sure that I've already gone and sharpened my pencils so that they're ready. There are some times where you'll have a color, and like for example, this one here, it's a green, and you might be looking at my reference photo thinking, where am I going to be using green? And to be honest, I saw some right at the edge of the pupil in one of the eyes. So I'm going to have it handy in case I need it. And if I am going to have it handy, I want it to be ready. So I'm going to sharpen it. All right, so that's one thing. I'm going to finish sharpening this one because it's here. And I just happen to have it in my hand. And you can see how I'm doing this. I'm just gently going along the wood to kind of scrape it off of the edge. And then if I need it to be sharper than that, I have a sanding stick here that I would use to sharpen it further. So once I've done that, I've picked out my colors, I've got them ready. I will move these aside for now because I'm going to show you some other things. I will move the pan pastels away as well, because I'm going to have them in a palette over on the side where I can mix those colors if I need to. For example, orange and white, brown and orange, white and gray. So the palette that I'm referring to is a plastic palette that I can stick those down into. So I will have that nearby. I have my soft tools ready here. I've made sure that I've got some that are clean, so I've just added these. And these are little sponges that you use you can buy the actual plastic palette. It will come with some of these sponges, but then you can buy extras. So I've got those ready. I have purchased some additional sponges that are like this because mine are pretty dark and I've cleaned them, but I want to make sure, because there's so much white on here, that I'm not going to be, putting dark colors where I want light colors. So I've got some extra ones of those ready. I also have some of the smaller application type for smaller areas. I have these. The way those are purchased is something that I've got them like this, but you can go to a makeup counter maybe and find some little makeup applicators just as easily. There's all kinds of things you can use. You just have to be kind of, think outside the box sometimes. I have all kinds of sponges and applicators that I would use. And then these are the blending stumps, also called tortillons. That's just a rolled paper that I will also use to get into tiny little areas if I need to blend. So I've got my blenders, I've got my tools here, I've got my pan pastels, I have my pencils. Let's talk about the foundation. So you'll see I have taped down here, and you don't have to tape it to a table. Tape it to a board if you need to, something that you can turn around the way you want. But for the purpose of the video, I'm using a table. But one thing that I've done differently this time, because I see people asking about this frequently, when you're framing something, most of the Pastelmat, the velour, watercolor paper, just about anything art supply wise paper, it's not going to be the normal size that you would frame something like 11 by 14 or 8 by 10 or 5 by 7. It's going to be an odd size. So what I've done this time, just to show you, is that I went ahead on the back of this paper, I measured out an 8 by 10, and then also I added a 1/2 inch all the way around so I can have that clean edge around the edge of the finished painting. One thing to remember, don't throw your scraps, because I can use this now to test out colors to make sure they're going to look the way on here that I intend for them to be here. So I'm saving my little scraps here to use those. I have a painter's tape. You test it. If you're not sure, then just take a piece, put it down here, kind of rub on it, do what you have to do, and then take it off. If it comes off cleanly, you're good. The worst thing in the world would be to have it rip your paper. With watercolors, sometimes that's an issue. So you got to be careful the kind of tape that you're using. You'll notice this is more than a 1/2 inch on this tape. So when I'm laying the tape around, because I've allowed for a 1/2 inch on all sides and then the inside to be 8 by 10, this will allow for a standard frame. If you want to go purchase a frame from the store, typically you'll be able to find an 8 by 10. The mats, everything that you might need already 8 by 10. So that could be really useful. And a lot of people forget that, and they're using a 9 by 12 inch paper. I do it all the time, but I want to make the use of all of that paper. So I work with that, and typically I'll put at least a 1/2 inch all the way around of tape to keep that nice clean edge for handling it and that type of thing. But one important thing, if you're going to do this, cut it to an 8 by 10 with a 1/2 inch border around, the last thing you want to do is cut that tape inside of the 8 by 10. I mean, it's not going to be devastating because most frames have that, allowance around the edges. But I have a handy T-square here that you can see. I have a 1/2 inch, and I just kind of winged it, but I was erring on the side of caution. 1/2 inch right there, just to make sure that now I know I've got an 8 by 10 with a 1/2 inch border. So that was the other thing. And glassine. When you buy certain types of paper like Pastelmat, every sheet here, I'll hold this over, I should have had it handier. But I always show you the glassine and not really how it comes. So this is the Pastelmat, and again, like I said, it comes 9.5 by 12 is the Pastelmat, the Clairefontaine. But every sheet is covered already by a piece of glassine. So when I go to the next, it figures I'm in a book that I only have one sheet left. But every sheet, nope, there's another one under there. Every sheet, there you go, has a piece of glassine on top of it to protect that surface. So when you're working with your pastel painting, you're going to be able to use that glassine two ways. Number one, while you're working. So if this is my painting, while I'm working and I've laid out an underpainting here to get ready to put my details in, I may have all of this has pastel on it, but I'm going to work up here in the ear area. I want something to lay my hand on so I'm not disturbing this, but I'm able to work in this area. You do not need to use this particular type of what's called glassine. You can use regular tracing paper, and the reason I say tracing paper, the sheer one, because you can see through it. But even just a regular piece of copy paper, anything to protect what's underneath your hand while you work in other areas. So that was the last piece. And then one other thing about transferring a photograph, This one is simple enough that I could just go ahead and sketch it out and have it, you know, ready to start painting just by using, I would use a mechanical pencil to sketch that out, and then use a kneadable eraser to pull up the excess pencil. Or I could use a soft pastel, and I can look at the painting from the back, put soft pastel anywhere that I want to transfer, lay this down, and I just have this cut to size. I have the cat to size so that I could use that in an 8x10, and I've checked, you know, the way I would want that laid out. So having this cropped down the way I want it, I could put pastel on the back, tape this down, and literally, and I don't like to use a pencil or pen because I can still use this reference photo if I don't. And these are, it doesn't have to be this. It could be anything that has a relatively, I don't want to say sharp because I don't want to cut the paper, but you know, even with the end of these, something, you know, that you're going to be going around, because it's not, perfection is not the goal there, because ultimately you're going to be going over that with an underpainting. You need to have things in place so that, you know, they're not out of proportion. But I will typically use this, which is, I do some, I'm trying to remember what these are called, but I use these for mandala paintings where I do, you know, the dot mandalas and that type of thing. Some people use them to do nail art. So you can find them in different places, but it doesn't even have to be this. But anyway, once you're gently tracing around there, that's going to transfer that pastel onto your paper. The outline, or however you want, how much detail you want to sketch on there, and that could be your starting point then when you start laying in your color. So with that being said, that's the best prep that you can do as far as getting all of your supplies ready, knowing ahead of time. Sometimes I think it takes longer for me to plan and have everything ready than it does for me to actually do the actual painting. But you know what? It's part of the process, and you have to trust the process because that process has a purpose. It ensures that I have what I need when I need it. I'm gonna lay these over here. It ensures that I have taken, you know, all of the precautions by having a piece of scrap that I can test my color mixes on before I start using them. I always have paper towels handy so that I can wipe off my tools. You'll notice that there's a lot here. That's because before I'm using my tools, even though I thought I may have, you know, cleaned them after the last use, I want to be sure because again, there's some white on this, obviously this cat. So I don't want to put dark on white. So I just, you know, this is all it takes. And you can test you can tell I got some stuff off, but it was from something and I decided not to use it because I was getting too much off. But the rest of these, they are really coming off clean. So that's when you know that it's okay to use them. So that's my process. I'm going to come back with another tutorial that's going to take it from transferring this to the paper. We've got our supplies ready and we'll actually paint this beautiful cat.